Oh, you're not recording the sound.
Now,
Okay.
I think I'm recording now. One. Yeah. On. One.
It gives a really nice peak when you do that.
Yeah,
so
it's nice.
Fun.
I do it a lot when I did it in a recording. In my recordings, when I'm doing kind of screencast, I will like clap so I can know when to do
And sync
stuff.
it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Then I was giving a workshop once where I was just playing my recordings as an experiment. I didn't realise I'm halfway through. It's just clap, and the audience goes, "What?"
That's a good one, and you should just like play it down as if it never happened, and then people will be like, "Did the others hear it too? Is it just me?" It's like, why? When you see like people are zoning off and stuff. Anyway, so as I was saying, and people, did he just? Okay, you heard it too. Okay,
That's
good.
brilliant. I'm going to try that. Here at Front Conference in Zurich with the amazing Martin Splitt and
Don't do that.
the busy Martin Splitt.
All right,
That's
okay, let's keep.
another
Poker face now.
Yeah, just let us know what you're doing these days. What are you up to?
So I'm a developer advocate at Google. I am in the web content ecosystem, so I'm mostly working with search and CMS platforms and stuff, but mostly it's Googlebot and Google Search and indexing JavaScript websites and helping people be successful on the web.
Oh, fantastic. CMS platforms? Do you
As in so 30% of the web approximately are running WordPress. So,
I know that statistic, yes.
Yeah. So that means that if we want to move, or if we want to make sure that people are moving forward with like using best practices and doing the right things on the web, like two-factor authentication, HTTPS by default, all this kind of stuff. If you bring that into WordPress, if you help the WordPress community do what they already want to do and already do, if we help them doing that, we immediately help 30% of the web, which is pretty freaking awesome.
Yeah. Oh yeah, of course. A quick, low-hanging...
Low-hanging fruit, I guess, you could say that.
Or a melon?
It's a bit of a melon. It's like 30% of the web.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
like
It's like a big one, right? It's
Yeah.
like a watermelon. And yeah, so like as I say, I know the Martin you now. When did we meet actually? 2 years ago?
I don't remember where it was the first time that we met, but it was definitely a couple of years back.
A couple of years back. So I know the now Martin,
Yes.
and I don't know the then Martin, the early Martin, the young Martin.
The early Martin.
The early Martin.
Oh my goodness.
And I always think it's fascinating to find out how people got into tech and kind of what was your journey into here. Would you mind spending a few minutes to let people know?
Sure. So the previous Martin had a different last name as well, because I changed my last name when I got married. So the little Martin grew up okay. Like we weren't rich, we weren't exactly poor, but I got into contact with computers relatively late. What I did get into contact really early on was Lego. So Lego, building blocks of all sorts of kinds, and I just love building stuff and creating my own things. But you know how Lego is, you're always missing this one specific piece, or there is even a piece that doesn't exist. I guess kids these days don't know that because you can just 3D print any piece that you need, I guess.
Well,
I'm not sure if you get the precision that you need.
Yeah, you could.
You could probably.
We're
not saying you should.
Yeah.
It might be illegal. I don't even know. Like, what's the? I'm not a lawyer.
But
whatever.
you mean like an unusual
and
Lego
unusual,
piece
exactly. Like
shape,
you're like, oh, I need, if only there were a thing that does this and
like
then connects
crazy
these and
Tetris,
exactly, and so first things first, your resources are finite because you only have so many pieces, and then you might want a piece that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Right, and there's not that much that I could do about it. It's just like, oh, I can't build the way that I think I would like to build because the piece just doesn't exist, or I just don't have access to it. But then eventually I was introduced to computers in the form of a Commodore 64 and then like some, I think 286 from Intel. With the turbo button and stuff.
Yeah, the turbo button. Why don't we have turbo buttons anymore? I want a turbo button.
Right? Yeah. We should have that again, just for old time's sake, I guess.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I was introduced to computers, and I realized relatively quickly after playing all the games that I had available, which weren't as many, it was like maybe a dozen, and I'm like, okay, so this was fun, but now it gets boring. I want to do my own thing with it. Can I actually? And because of the Commodore, in the manual you had the basic programming guide.
Yep.
So I learned from the operating manual of my computer how to program my computer, and that was actually really, really cool because you could get started. And then I got a book from someone. It was all outdated by the time, but like I got a book that had games in it that were written in assembly, and you would have to write, like, it is a book, so you have to like type them in. And the fun thing is you had to type the assembler in, as in like you had to write a program in BASIC that would execute the assembler code that you would be typing separately. That was painful. But it was amazing because it taught me a lot on how this machine worked. I didn't fully understand everything at the time, but I'm like, okay, so I understand that certain bits and pieces are in certain locations in the memory, and this piece of memory is actually the screen memory, so if I write a weird value in there, a weird thing happens on screen. Whoa! So that was kind of cool, but it took like a couple of years until I figured that I should be doing like more programming, so I built like small games and stupid stuff. Eventually I switched to Linux, and I'm like, oh, okay, there's not that many games available, so I'm going to write my own little things to keep me busy. But then I noticed that I can't really share them with anyone. Like, no one else was running Linux from my friends, and I'm like, this is boring. Like, okay, it's nice to play it when we're at my place, but I can't share it with the world at large, and I decided to do more web stuff, so that's why I'll get onto web. Even though you couldn't really do something funky at the time, but I know that the browser games that we were into were basically tables of values and forms that you would submit, and then the server would like deal with it, and like in 12 hours your 5 star cruisers are arriving at this planet.
I used
and then
to play a zombie apocalypse game.
It's like that, right? So like we built stuff like this and used images and things to like to spice it up a little bit, but that was it was games that got me into it, and that was fun. And then I planned on becoming a nurse, basically. So I did my practical, basically an internship for becoming a nurse before I actually did like the proper thing, the proper apprenticeship. And I noticed that the healthcare system in Germany is in a pretty bad shape, and that's not necessarily a career that you can necessarily live off well. And so I decided, okay, so I have to like pause my helping people thing that I want to do.
Was that your motivation for becoming a nurse? Was like this desire to help people?
To help people. I think it's just one of the most important jobs that we have, and it's really underappreciated, both doctors and nurses. Because in the end, life is the most precious thing that we've got, and without someone who knows what's going on and helping you out in the worst situations, it's pretty pretty bad.
Amazing.
So I paused that. I went into computer science, started a university degree, got really, really bored, started a company, did too much, burned out. I was very, very, very lucky that I had such a fantastic network of friends and family that helped me through the 6 months of depression and darkness that follows such a burnout. And that's when I figured out, okay, so all these opportunities, all these things that we get, we are very, very privileged as developers that we keep getting opportunities, even if we screw up. Like, we get a second chance because no one can afford to like bump you off if you know what you're doing. So I got a second chance, basically, and I slowly got back into programming and eventually noticed that the programming is nice and interesting and challenging, but what is even nicer and more interesting is tying that back to people, right? So many developers are like, ooh, an interesting math puzzle. Yeah, it's interesting, but I find them relatively boring these days because it's an interesting challenge for a couple of minutes. It keeps your mind busy, but I find it more interesting in what can I use this math for that helps someone do something, either better or more securely or safely, or someone might not have to do something, right? If it's something dangerous, then that's kind of cool if you don't have to do that. And that's why I probably then eventually moved on from a developer towards more of a advocate role, and that's where I am right now. And while I'm not necessarily curing cancer or something, I believe that I'm doing a tiny little bit of contribution because I hope to be able to enable others and to empower others to build a successful existence on the web, which I think is a fantastic platform because it's open, it is decentralized, and I want to keep it that way.
And you're helping others again.
Yeah, pretty much.
Doing, right?
People come with problems,
thing,
and I get the interesting problems, but I also get problems that actually, when they are solved, help the person that I solved them for.
Oh, amazing! Yeah, beautiful journey.
Yeah.
What I'm really noticing with a lot of advocates is there is a desire to kind of do good.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, and this is just the way we manifest it now at this point of our lives in our careers. So yeah.
And it's usually generally the understanding that the human side of what we're doing is really important.
Yeah. Yeah. And like if you were to go back in time and kind of give yourself some of the younger yourself some advice.
Are you implying that I'm old? Younger Martin, what would I tell him? Chill out, it's gonna be fine.
That's actually pretty good advice.
Especially when you come into it. So like I see so many people. It was quite interesting to be. So at some point I was in a team that was relatively inexperienced, and we were running like some application in the real world. We had some production systems, and there would be downtimes, and some people were like absolutely freaking out and like crying and whatnot. And I was just like, oh, we have an outage. All right, let me sit down and see what's happening. Okay, so this is what happens. Here's what we're gonna get when we roll back. Oh, look at that, we are back on live. And then people are like, Martin, how can you be so chill? And I'm like, I don't know, during my internship when I would have made a mistake and like I would have really screwed up, people would have probably, I mean, I had always someone with me who prevented that, but hypothetically, if I would be alone in that situation, people might have died.
Yeah.
That's a very different stake, right?
Yeah.
This time, someone can't buy stuff from our online shop. Ooh. Our customers are angry and calling us on the hotline and yelling at us. Oh, all right, I guess we're gonna get yelled at for an hour, and then everyone's moving on.
Yeah. Get some context.
Get some context. Get some perspective.
And like
zoom out. Yeah, zoom out, and
just, you've got your whole life ahead of you,
and especially when you're absorbed in a product, in a team, in a company, especially if it's a startup, like they love to say it's a life and death situation.
Yeah. It's not.
It's not. It really is not.
It's a job.
As rough as it sounds, and as unlikely as it sounds, I mostly grew up with not as much money, and my mother said it's just money.
Yeah.
If something happens, it's just money. It's like, if you don't have money for a taxi to come back from this really sketchy spot in the middle of the night after a party, call a taxi, we'll pay for it. I'm like, well, we don't have that much money. It's just like, I still prefer that from you being run over on a dark street.
Yeah.
She gave me a lot of perspective on that, and I think I kept that perspective throughout my life. And
that's good.
And it's really important to have this perspective, because if you think like, oh my God, the world is gonna end, unless you're really like building, I don't know, a nuclear power plant control software, or if you are building software that controls an airplane, you're probably fine screwing up every now and then. Obviously, you should try to learn something from it and not make the same mistake again. But generally speaking, it'll be fine. Don't waste your life on stuff that doesn't matter in the end. Pulling weekends, pulling all-nighters, it's like, if only I put in this one weekend, then my product will be successful. No, it might still fail, and then you have lost your weekend. You're never gonna get that time back.
I have spent so much of my life like working weekends, thinking it mattered.
Yeah, or long hours for that matter.
Putting my effort into startups, and then like my life and time into it, and now
it's just not.
It's just not important. And now I think what I do a lot of meditation these days, and that's one of the things that teaches you is just to take. It's the awareness. So in every single given moment, just have the awareness, almost a step aside from the situation. And that gives you the perspective to go, oh,
hold on. Yeah, what looks like a very terrible, threatening situation here, you step out and it's like it's just two people quarreling.
And my relationship to that, my feelings here is just some emotion. Yeah. And that's not me, and I just walk away and you're done. And especially with would you mind talking about burnout?
Sure, we can talk about burnout.
So that's for me. I believe I've been very close. I don't think I've really done burnout, but I've been very, very close, especially with some of the startup activities that I've done in the past. because you can just get completely and utterly engrossed, and it's almost like everything narrowed down, everything disappears in your life.
Yeah.
Until something becomes the most important thing in the world, and you completely, for me, it was completely lost that perspective.
Yeah. It's a little like Tetris, right? The pieces are falling, and you're busy like sorting them into the slots and spots, and you're like, okay, I'm getting there, I'm getting somewhere. I'll get to the end. I'll get to the pot of gold, quite literally, and then it'll be fine.
Yeah, one more day, one more hour.
That might not happen.
Yeah.
The lines that you complete disappear if you're unlucky, and like you make a mistake and they pile up, and then that's it. You fail, and then you have to deal with the fact that you failed. And actually, failure is okay.
Great, yeah.
It's great. It means you learned a way to not do something, and you can now try another way that might be better or might give different results at least. But yeah, so I know how you felt, and I know that happened to me as well. It's like it's this one more customer, it's this one more contract, it's this one more shipping that we're gonna do, it's this one more release, and then we'll be fine. And
at what point did you realize? Or did it happen, this is like enough? And what did you do to help recover from that afterwards?
I wish I realized that much earlier. So what I know is, if you really enjoy doing what you're doing, and you have things outside of work that you enjoy doing, like playing games with friends, meeting with friends, having lunch with friends, or just having
friends, you ignore your friends. When you're in this mode.
And the other thing, like, I don't know, if you like to play video games, or if you like to go cycling or swimming or anything, if there's something that you have always been doing whenever you have the opportunity to, and you stop doing that, that's a really, really big warning sign. It's like, hold on, what's happening? And then oftentimes I meet so many people that say like, yeah, it's just I'm a little tired. And I'm like, are you sure though? Is it that you're actually not getting enough sleep? And they're like, oh, I get enough sleep. It's just like I come back from work, or I come back from this client, and then I'm so drained, and I'm like, that's not tired.
Yeah.
If it drains you to the point where you do not have energy to do what you would like to do with your life, and that's already you're in the wrong place.
And your sleep is probably not going to be the restful recovery.
Exactly. If you can't switch off anymore, if you can't meditate anymore, if I can't go swimming or cycling anymore, if someone else can't play the video games they like, that's a warning sign that you need to take at least one step back and go like, hold on, what's happening here? Why am I doing this? Is this what I want to do? Is this leading me where I want to be? And honestly, the answer is normally no. Because let's be honest, you're not really working for the sake of working. You work for establishing something. That can be like financial safety or independence or freedom to do something whatever you want, or like going on a vacation for 6 months or what. I don't know what you're working for. That's for you to discuss and decide with yourself. But I know that I want to work both for helping other people and then like solving problems for other people through software, as well as just having the freedom to be with my family, with my friends, and do the things that I enjoy, like swimming, like diving now that I picked that up.
Wow.
All these bunch of things that I like to do, I want to do them. And we live in a system where we have to work to have the financial independence and freedom to do these things. So that's what I work for. Yes, sure, career is nice because it gives me more challenges, it gives me more freedom, maybe it might give me more autonomy, but at the same time, I'm not doing it because of that. I don't work to progress on a ladder. I work so that I can spend quality time with the people I care about, which for me is my family and friends.
What's the saying? You work to live. Work to live?
You work to live, not live to work. I think that's the one. And that's something that is very easy to like lose track of, and especially if you really feel committed to the small family of people in your startup. A startup is not family. A company is not a charity. You provide them something, they provide you money in return. You trade your time, and that's the one resource you do not get back. Money, worst case, take a loan or like cut the living costs in some way or another. There's always a way to like figure that one out. But your time, you never get back your time.
No.
If
never.
I invested,
time is the most valuable asset in the world.
If I invest an hour, I better make it count, because my hour is very expensive to me, because I have no way of bartering that back. I'm not gonna get it back ever.
You can't ever get more hours into your life.
No. And then it's like, okay, so because a bunch of people make this weird false trade-off where they're like, or at least problematic, I'm not saying false, but like problematic trade-off, like, oh, yes, I might not be with my wife or my kids this weekend, but I make so much money that then we can afford to be away a week. Yeah. But is that true though, right? Is it because if you kill yourself and then have a week vacation in a really nice tropical place, but you're so tired and drained and burned.
It takes you 2 days just to decompress.
And then you have a hard time not responding to work emails, then is it worth it? I don't think it's worth it.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important to like not fall into that trap.
Some of the things I do when I'm on is I switch off all notifications.
I have them off all the time, basically. Like I don't email notifications on my work phone. Yeah. Note: I have a phone for work. It does not fly with me on vacation. Nice. Does not happen.
Yeah, that has been a big one for me, and also just being committed to not checking anything when you're on vacation, having quality time at home. Yeah.
And if you are a team lead or a manager, if you see people responding to emails during their off hours or weekends, or do not celebrate that. That's like a really, really important thing. I have a boss who basically goes like, you are on vacation. Why exactly are you reading your emails? You should not be reading your emails. Go to the beach, man. Yeah. Then I'm like, right, it's good. That's a good manager.
I don't think I'm actually on vacation right now, to be honest with you.
Ooh.
But you know, I wanted to come to this conference and see people.
It's fine if you want to do that. That's fine. It's just it's a different thing between wanting something and feeling forced to do something.
And one of the things I've got to say, I'm quite proud of, I suppose, at work, is I had to approve some expenses, and it wouldn't let me.
Nice.
It wouldn't let me. It said, no, you're
out of office.
You're not allowed to. You're out of office. And you can't approve holidays. You can't do anything. And I was like, oh. Mailing team, can you just send all requests to my manager? And it's been brilliant.
That's amazing. It's such a small change in the tooling, but it enables great things, right? Exactly, it's like it enables you to step back and say like, you know what? You're right. I shouldn't be doing this. This is work. I don't enjoy doing this. I mean, I have to, but it's like, that's nice. That's really nice. So I discovered that too late. I didn't notice that I got into a burnout. I got into a burnout, and that manifested in really, really rough, actually. And some of it I carry with me to this day. If a customer will call me, I would physically not be able to respond. If I would have to, like, if I opened my laptop and started opening the tools for work on my work email account, I got an anxiety attack. And then I'm like, okay, so what the hell is wrong with me? Like, I know that there's no rational, the rational voice does not disappear, right? It goes like, no, man, it's just an email. Just sit down and respond to that customer. It's fine. All you do is like you're sending him an invoice. This is actually the good part of this work, right? This is the nice bit of this. So why can't you do it? And I didn't have an answer to it. I just couldn't. And it got worse and worse over time until depression really hits. And depression is such a bastard. It's basically like it's a Sunday. You are not supposed to do anything anyway. So like no one has any expectations of what you're supposed to be doing. But you're like, okay, so here's the goal for today. I'll get up, I'll have a shower, I'll get dressed, and then I have some breakfast. Forget about it. You might be able, if you're lucky, if the hunger is big enough, you might get up and have breakfast, and then go back to bed. And you're not even asleep. You're not sleeping because you're stressing out, because you're like, I set myself such low goals, and I was not able to actually get out of the freaking bed and get into the shower. What is happening here? And it's like your body just doesn't respond to the commands, or if you force yourself to make it respond to the commands, it panics. And that is really, really stressful. And that like is not a good thing, because you're already stressed, you're stressing yourself even more, and then your body stresses you back, and that's like a really, really tough cycle. And it took me 6 months to break it, and that's actually like relatively fast, and I'm really, really happy. And I couldn't have done it with the support of so many people.
Yeah.
And I felt so bad. Like friends were worried about me not showing up for things or like not making it to meetings or appointments that we had set up earlier. And they would call me, but I wasn't responding. And then they would show up at my door, and I'm like, I don't want to go to the door. I can't do this. And then they were like, yeah, they made sure that they checked in with me. Yeah. They made sure that I was fine, and they basically like literally took me every single step, let me have the breaks where I needed them, and eventually I made it out. And that is so unbelievable to me now. Like when I was in that hole, I'm like, I'm never gonna get out of this. Like this is an impeccable wall of darkness around me. There's no way, even if I wanted someone to come through, they would have to fight. Why would they fight through the darkness that I have in my head? Like what the hell, it's not their problem. It's my problem, but I don't know how to solve it. It's such, I felt so deep in, but I got out. And now that I'm out, I'm like, how did that ever happen? That I got this deep into it. And
it's a spiral.
It's a spiral. It's a spiral that is surprisingly quick sometimes. And
love got you out of it.
Yeah, I'm really, really happy that I'm out of it. And I'm, to this day, I appreciate the small things. Like if I have a hot shower, I'm like, look at this. I can just like have a hot shower whenever I want. I can do whatever I feel is the right thing.
I practice. I have a practice of gratitude.
Yeah.
So we do that every day in our household, and I do it every morning and evening. And it's just the act of coming up with just a few examples of what you're grateful for forces you to do an index scan through your day, very inefficient for some, and then makes you think, look for positiveness.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you when you being grateful is what brings joy.
Yeah, it does. It does. It makes you happy to see that you did good things. And our brain is wired in an interesting way. Like if you have 100 people that say, "Hey, you have done fantastic things. Oh my God, I love your work. Thank you so much for being you and being here." And then there's one person that says, "Like I don't think that was useful. I think that was a waste of my time." You're gonna remember that. You're gonna remember that one voice, and discard, not necessarily discard, but like disqualify all the other things that were being said. And I try to be a positive voice, especially on Twitter. I use my Twitter outlets to be like, no, I'm not gonna sit here and like yell and cry and be annoyed, like, or be annoyed or yell at people. I'm trying to uplift the positive examples or like speak about the great stuff that has happened and that I would like to see more of, to counter this tendency that we all have and that we all share, I think, in like amplifying negative things. And I do practice gratitude as well. I've never called it that, but basically I have Denise Jacobs and I were talking about it. She had a fantastic talk at Workspace Athens. Highly recommend that one. She's like, keep a happy log. And I do have that. I basically, whenever something good happens, I write that down, and then I can go back and say like, look, last month, this year, this happened and that made me really happy. Yesterday, this happened, that made me really happy.
And that's good to remember, because if you're today and something bad happened, you scan back and go, actually. Because you forget, it's very, very easy, just forget. Because I keep a track of things, and every week I review, and you completely forget
about it.
And even just the most amazing bits of news that happened on Monday, something negative on Friday, and you think
you're like, oh, the week was terrible.
It was terrible, and you're like, actually, this was an amazing week.
And it's so important because especially if you're exposed to the public, like we are in developer relations, you always get this like random angry person who might not even be angry at you. They might just be angry at the state of things. They're like, oh, this company does this thing that I disagree with, and you're like, no, okay.
They're just manifesting their frustration in a very unhealthy way towards you. People don't realize how things are disconnected. And then you have to deal with that. And I would love to say like, I'm super on top of things, like whatever. No, I care. I care when I get constructive feedback, I respond constructively, but when I get destructive feedback, or not feedback at all, just like someone yelling or complaining or something, then I need a way to dampen that, right? I can't just walk away from that. I wish I could, and whoever can do that is a master or a mistress of that, but I think if you can't. If you care, you can't really that easily. Care and not be affected by it. I don't think those things
I don't think that exactly. Those are mutually exclusive. You're either you care or you can just ignore these things. And then I use the things that I wrote down, and I'm like, oh look, here's someone saying thank you for whatever I did, and here's something that happened that was great, and oh yeah, my nephew did this thing that's amazing, and then you forget about the bad things, and that's really important.
I think that's it. Thank you so much for
having me. Fantastic.
I really want to say thank you so much for sharing your past and history, especially the stuff. There's a lot of stuff I think you said today which is going to help a lot of people.
I hope so. Yeah. That's what I'm here for.
Awesome. Thanks, Martin.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
He's on a clap. I'll wave instead. Okay. Well, that's just a lovely awkward ending.
Awkward. That's what happens. It's fine.